Hey, bueno mi gente, Calix Boxing here and sending positive vibes out there to everybody on this Friday, this beautiful Friday here in South Louisiana at Calix Boxing headquarters. Hope everybody's hearing me good. Mic check, mic check. Vocal should be good. I noticed on D Styles channel on the last episode, something reset with my mic and it was way, way, way too high. So it should be good right now. Make sure you're hitting that like button as you come through. If you're on X, like I said, clicks are clicks, views are views. If you want to come over to YouTube right quick and hit the like button and go right back, that's fine. You know, views are views, clicks are clicks. 7 over on YouTube right now, 10 over on X so far. Saludos to Jesus M. Ryan and Devin, sensitive generation, Gen Z, you are correct. DJ Mexicano DTX, DB boxing fan in the building. Drunk Irishman over there in Ireland, excuse me. Shout out to you. Was waiting a response on this dumpster fire situation. And it's not much of a response. Then people are missing the big picture to this. And I'll talk about that in a minute, Serge, because this situation on a micro level, it doesn't really get my attention. It is what it is, right? And it's going to continue to be that. And I've been saying that for over a decade now. But there's a bigger situation going on here that the wizards are smart in the boxing media and American boxing fans continue to just miss. Or they see it and they don't want to address it. Or they're not so much boxing fans as fans of certain fighters, first and foremost. And boxing comes at the expense of that. It could be all of the above. It could be some of those things individually. Oh gosh, Riot, Garcia, talk. Come on. Ryan and Devin are my generation. I promise we're not all like this. I apologize anyway. So I put this tweet out a little while ago, and this pretty much sums up how my frustration as a boxing fan as a whole over the years, particularly over the past decade. It goes something like this, fellas. Speak about the economics of boxing and they'll call you a dumb boxing fan who needs to strictly focus on the sport. Does that sound familiar? You bring up something and you say, you know, maybe that guy shouldn't be paid that. My first ever boxing video, 2010, on Twitter was something on YouTube was something about Andre Berto making $1.1 million to fight Freddie Hernandez in a ballroom. And how is that sustainable? How does that make sense economically, right? And you're told when you say things like that, that focus on the sport. I've seen trainers pin articles on PBC's website. I've seen journalists in big publications pin websites and go on Twitter and talk down to fans and say, you need to stay in your place. You need to stick to your place. And your place as a boxing fan is to strictly focus on the fights. And you need to take the fights that we give you because there's a reason that we're giving you these fights, because you need to trust the process. And economically, those other fights don't make sense, right? So we get that. That's what we get on the front end of that when we speak about economics. It generally is that we can't possibly understand what these guys are doing on the back end to further the sport, and you need to trust the process. The other part of this, second paragraph, call for top fighters to fight each other, etc., and they'll call you naive and explain to you that it's a business. So they notice how they run you in this circle. It's a circle, right? And you focus on the business and no, stay in your place and focus on the sport. Okay, bet. All right, so we're not going to do that. Let's focus on the sport. Let's listen to them. Let's focus on the sport. So how about we get Tank versus Josh Taylor instead of Tank versus Matteo Badio, since it's a sport, right? And since the best fighters should be fighting the best and we should be going for greatness, how about we focus on the sport? And it's listen to this guy. He doesn't understand the economic. He doesn't understand what the sport is now. He doesn't understand it. It doesn't work this way anymore. I cannot feed my children legacy. I can't do it. I can't feed them legacy. So we're not going after the legacy anymore. We're not going after titles. None of that stuff matters anymore. So you're just a naive boxing fan. And you need to understand why we can't do those fights. Cross promotion. We don't make other promoters rich. And it's not just Tank This is across the board, fellas. It's across the board, right? So they'll do that number and they'll run you back to the economic side. Go to the economics, they run you to the sport. Go to the sport, they run you back to the economics. They're just running you in a circle and hoping that you stick around running in a circle, and they continue to raid the pantry. They'll even go as far as saying that fighters don't need to entertain you or deliver the big fights to you as a fan, and you should still support their careers. Does that sound familiar as well? Have you heard that? You need to understand that if you want to see your favorite fighter fight, it's got to be a pay-per-view. Deontay Wilder versus Robert Helenius, you got to understand that Helenius is a real-life Viking, number one. I thought Vikings didn't exist, but Helenius is a real-life Viking. So, one, that makes it pay-per-view worthy. And two, if you want to see Deontay Wilder fight, he has this high minimum, so we have to put it on pay-per-view. We have to, in order to pay for the fight and make money off this fight. Well, who made that model? Who did that? So it's not just that you can't get what you want anymore and the bar has been lowered. It's you still have to pay and support their careers, even if they're not giving you that. I've heard this from boxing fans say things like, you're not entitled to big fights from these fighters. You're not entitled to them fighting top fighters. What are you doing? What are you doing here? What do you mean? What do you think this is? Actually, I am. That's how the market works. That's how it works. That's how we behave as boxing fans, is we give the demand, they supply it. That's how it works. But now it doesn't. Now it's, if a pay-per-view does extravagantly well, they'll come out, they'll jerk each other off, give each other pats on the back, all kind of stuff, right? And look at what we did. Look at what we accomplished. And then if the pay-per-view bombs, it's because of the market. It's because the market didn't understand what a good fight this was. The market just doesn't support. You guys steal the fights. You're just not good fans. And in finality, no wonder there are only 150,000 of us left in this country, hardcore boxing fans. Who in their right mind would support that type of business model? So we've heard Leonard Ellerbe and his brilliance, right? Unemployed Leonard Ellerbe will say there's only 150,000 left in America. We've done the research. And Lou DiBella has said something similar. But nobody's asking them the follow-up questions when they say this stuff in interviews. Why? Why are there only 150,000 left? Why? Why is that the case? I'll ask even more questions. And I'll give you a clip in a minute of Devin Haney. I'll give you a clip, hopefully if I can pull it up, of Dana White in an interview talking about boxing, an interview with Shannon Sharp, talking about sort of why boxing's in the mess it is. But nobody's asking these follow-up questions. I have further questions. Why is it that Japan has more belts than America? Why is that happening? Why is it that Mexico is almost on par with America as far as belts? This has never happened. And why are American boxing journalists not asking these questions? Why are they not highlighting these things? Have y'all seen a single article penned by an American boxing journalist yet of the fact that America has less belts than Japan, and Mexico is even close to catching up with America? Have y'all seen one? Have y'all seen it? If so, let me know in the chat. Maybe I missed it, but have y'all seen, from the top publications on down, have y'all seen anybody pen this article? Have you seen anybody highlighting this? No? Maybe? Have you seen any journalists like raising the alarms, raising the red flags that, fellas, like this is bad, this is historically bad everywhere across the board? Why is it that we have a handful of young American stars who 5-6 years ago looked promising, and they've all at some point in their career so far, and they're all like in their mid-20s, have retired and constantly whine and complain more than they actually fight? These dudes are not living up to expectations. None of them are having sustainable, great careers. None of them. Not one, besides Bam Rodriguez. And he's He's in a, if you ask American boxing fans on the internet, online, he's fighting a bunch of bums because they're all midgets. So nobody wants to pay attention to the one young American fighter who's actually sustainably doing something with his career. They want to build up these other fighters. Ryan Garcia, he's getting arrested in a hotel and he's walking out the hotel with the motorcycle helmet on, and there's no motorcycles anywhere around. Nowhere. And this dude's Twitter timeline looks like he's insane. He's absolutely insane. You're going to expect that dude to do something sustainable? Devin's out there with this whining, and I'll address that in a minute. Oh my God, oh, woe is me. Oh my God, oh, look what happened to me. And you guys, you need to understand I'm an undefeated fighter and I should be back on the pound for pound list and all. And his army of brain dead fans. Shakur Stevenson has terrible performances against Nakathila and De Los Santos, and then he's whining out, you dudes, you just don't understand the sweet science. You don't understand how impressive it is to throw like 3 punches in a round and win a fight. You just don't understand. You don't understand what it's like being me. Teofimo Lopez, up and down performances. And then after a terrible performance, he'll say things like, after a good performance, he'll say, I need $100 million and I want to fight in the Sphere. Like, who are you? Dude, you can't even perform in the big arena in New York. You're fighting in the theater, bro. In the theater. What are you talking about? What do you mean? And they're not putting together that they're all being managed terribly. They all are meeting low expectations set by their fans and by the American boxing public in general. These are the lowest standards I've ever seen of a group of athletes. Good Lord. All entitled. They feel like they're all entitled to things. They're all constantly whining and complaining and then wondering why they're not Canelo or AJ. They're wondering why they don't have these big bases and they're not stars. How about, first of all, you try to come off a little likable? How about we start there? How about you don't get arrested in a hotel with a motorcycle helmet on? That's a good start. How about you don't hit a woman pregnant in her car while you're riding on the booster seat and then walk away from that? Like, how about we start there? That's a good start. How about we don't whine on social media every time something doesn't go our way? It's another start. And how about you actually do special things inside the ring? How about that? We have this mentality in American boxing now to where I'm gonna just call it the have your cake and eat it too mentality. And I want all the perks of being this fighter who makes multi-million dollars per fight, right? Because we don't feed our kids legacy anymore. So we'll fight average opposition and make a ton of money, right? Because American boxing fans seem to be okay with that. Okay. And we don't have to go through the fire of fighters of previous generation because this is prize fighting. You need to understand something. This isn't just fighting and it's not just boxing. What this is hit and don't get hit. And what this is prize fighting. And in prize fighting, we go after the prize. And if we could separate the fire from going after the prize, then we'll do that. And they're not computing. They're not getting their calculators out and doing their little math and wondering, wait a second, why has the boxing market in America been cut in half the past 10 years? And then cut in half from 10 years before that? And then cut in half from 10 years before that? Why is this happening? And then they'll blame piracy. They'll blame all kind of things that have some impact, but they're not getting to the root cause of this. It's what Dana White talks about all the time is they treat every event like a going out of business sale. They don't treat it as long-term strategic planning on, let's just put the best fighters against each other and see who comes on top of that. And even if fighters lose, they'll still become stars because they're household names. It's none of that. It's none of that. It's all based off of, Let's get what we can get out of each individual boxing fan in America, and let's see how much we can screw them. That's what it looks like to me. That's what the business model looks like to me. And when I see 13, 12, whatever it is right now, titles held by American fighters in today's day and age, I say the bar has been set so low and the bar has stayed high for foreign fighters. And that's why they're catching up to us, because people will meet your expectations over time. They'll either go down to them or they'll go up to them. And if our expectations are so low of American fighters, then, but they want their cake and eat it too. They want to say, let's just give Tank, because to me, he's the poster boy of this, the cake and eat it too thing. They want to say titles don't matter. They want to say these things, right? They want to say you don't have to fight top competition anymore. It's not how we do things. We don't fight. We don't feed our kids' legacy. He beats those guys anyway. Okay. And they'll do this thing, right? He doesn't have to fight the top competition. It's like, all right. So if we're going to treat this like, if we're going to treat him like a novelty fighter, then that's what we'll do. We'll keep him off pound for pound list. We'll keep him out of the top rankings, number one at lightweight rankings, right? Because we can't put him number one in lightweight rankings. We can't put him in top 10 pound for pound list if he's not fighting the top fighters within his own weight class, right? We can't do that. And for the life of me, I don't understand why Kambosos isn't in a top 10 lightweight and Frank Martin is. Why? What has Frank Martin done to be a top 10 lightweight? Has he achieved more at lightweight than George Kambosos? So I see these rankings, right? And it seems to be built to make certain fighters look good. And that, once again, it goes to our expectations of these top fighters being so low and us bending everything to fit them, right? And build them up to greatness. And that's the other part of this, of the cake and eat it too, is you can do so little, but you'll still be in mythical matchups with Roberto Duran, and people will still be voting for you to beat Roberto Duran in a mythical matchup. These fighters don't have to do special things anymore to be in conversations with special fighters from previous generations. They don't. Our expectations and our bars of these fighters in today's era have been set so low. But yet we want to have them in conversations with fighters who have done things that these fighters can't even hold a candle to. They can't even hold the candle to. And I'm tired of the fan bases. I'm tired of the fan bases whining and moaning that you're not, look at Devin, look at what he's done. Look at how special he is. Look at what Tank's done. And they're whining and they're explaining all this stuff away that these fighters are doing or not doing. And this is what I'm talking about. I'm gonna sound like a cuck. I'm gonna sound like all kind of things, right? You're just like all YouTubers. You never fought a day in your life. And this is what I'm saying. We can't compete in the arena of ideas. And it's other boxing fans who do this. I already expect this from journalists. I expect this from fighters. I expect this from managers and promoters, right? But when boxing fans, just good old nature boxing fans who like anybody from any part of the world, whatever they look like, race, color, religion, it doesn't matter. Just asking fighters to do simple things, just fight the fights. And you called all kind of names from the boxing fans who have Stockholm syndrome, or they're just new boxing fans. Maybe they picked it up a couple years ago, and these fighters, they just can't put it into proper context how little these fighters are actually doing. And they'll demonize people who complain about it. Boxing fans, the market, we're the consumer. We just say we want to consume better content. We're the supply, you're the demand. We're the demand, you're the supply. This is what we demand, you supply it. And it's other boxing fans who are in the supply, and they'll be fans of certain fighters at the expense of the sport as a whole. And they'll undercut you as a boxing fan. And there's not much you can do to set the bar higher and get better fights if that's what's happening, right? Yeah, I don't know. So this is Devin Haney. Let's set up the whole Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia situation real quick with this right here. Let me share it. Let's hit that. share. And fellas, I just don't. I Of course we're gonna be around. Of course we'll talk about the sport and the fights and matchups like that. But I'm just setting this up to reiterate that I don't have high hopes of American boxing at all. Not only the fighters, but just the whole thing. The American journalists, the BWA, right? The Boxing Writers Association of America, and the whole thing, just the whole thing seems broken to me. Even when we're getting great fights in Turkey, Al Sheikh, the whole thing just seems broken to me. And I think we're starting to see that from the end result. It's just years and years and years of catering to whining fighters, and it's just an ugly picture that's being painted here. But this is Devin Haney whining.
My lawyers and team will do what they got to do to and to prove that, and in court, and against Ryan Garcia, and we will take legal action to because it has affected me, not only my financially, but mentally, everything.
So that's Devin Haney whining, basically. But that's Devin Haney, and he's talking about possibly suing Ryan Garcia for extra damages, right? And we'll have a lot to say about Ryan Garcia, trust me, and him whining, and just his whole thing. He's just, God, man. But Devin, what he's saying here is we're going to go after damages because what has happened is when you see a purse bid and I'm only going to make 1.5 to fight Sandor Martin, my loss are perceived as a loss because it's no longer a loss. It's a no contest. But people still saw what they saw, right? They still saw what they saw. So it has affected my future purses. And on top of that, it's affected me mentally because it's affected him mentally. So he's going to go after Ryan Garcia for more money. So it's like, okay, all right, that's fine. But let me offer another pathway he could take. And God forbid I do, because I'm just a boxing fan. I don't understand the financials of it. I've never fought a day in my life, so I'm just not going to understand. So, and Aztec, you may be right. It's a legitimate lawsuit, but this is the problem. And once again, it's boxing, and it's short term over long term. Let me offer another pathway he could possibly take. And God forbid I do. But maybe, just maybe, we move on. And the reason I offer that is Devin Haney could be seen as a sympathetic figure here, right? He could be seen as a sympathetic figure and just go on and then get a rematch with Ryan Garcia next year, because that's going to happen, fellas. It's going to be a rematch, and it's going to be seen as bad blood, and it'll probably be bigger than the first one. And I hear the first one wasn't as big as they're saying as far as financials, but the second one will likely be bigger than the first one, and that's fine. And the reason I offer that solution is maybe, just maybe, he becomes more marketable and makes more money doing that. Maybe he sacrifices the short term of chasing money from Ryan Garcia. It's going to be caught up in litigation, and then he's going to have to hire lawyers and lawyer fees. And then it's going to take a while, and then he's going to have to trust that he can get money off of Ryan Garcia, and Ryan Garcia is actually going to pay it, and the court's going to make him pay it. It's a process, right? And this is long process, and it's going to be seen as a whining process. Whether that's fair or not, Aztec, that's how it's going to be seen, as a whining process. And Gervonta Davis is out there calling him a B-word for doing this, and that's how it's going to be seen and perceived by a lot of people. So maybe you just go on and say, I'm going to be seen as more of a sympathetic figure here who was screwed, who was hosed here, and I'm going to move on and try to rebound from this. You could do that. But this, to me, from Devin and Ryan, is just seen as more whining. I'm not focused on the Osterin thing, because I've been telling you guys for a decade, none of that stuff, nobody's going to do anything. A year? What is that? Slap on the wrist. A year? Some of these fighters don't fight twice in a year anyway. So at worst, he loses one fight. One fight. 8 months, he'll be back in the training camp, fellas. That's what this is. So from where I'm sitting, Ryan got off pretty easy, and that was expected. That's what we've been telling you for a decade. It's all, excuse me, it's all slap on the wrist, slap on the wrist, slap on the wrist. That's what this is. So Ryan got off pretty easy, as far as I see. That's a W for him. He's able to come over 3 pounds, pay him, and he's out there whining, saying if the fight never happened and it's a no contest, then I shouldn't get my 1.5 back from Devin since the fight technically didn't happen. So he may countersuit. Who knows? He's crazy enough to do it. The dude got arrested with a motorcycle helmet on, and there's no motorcycles around. He's not all there. Y'all understand that, right? He's not all there. So it comes out that after this fight that was supposed to be a big fight and great for the sport, what happens instead? Both of these dudes come out looking like losers. None of them look sympathetic. Neither one of them stock rose. And it's a no contest. And it fits the trend perfectly. The trend is American fighter does something that looks great, and then the next fight, he may suck. He may put 2 good fights together, and then the next fight, he sucks. Even if he wins, he looks like he sucks. That's the trend. Other than Bam, fellas, like in the American boxing journalists, they're not going to tell you this. They're not going to tell you. They're not going to tell you. That's the trend. Other than Bam Rodriguez, that's the trend in America. We're still putting out talent. Look at Top Rank's young roster. But somewhere between prospect contender and contender champion, something is broken. Something is broken here. And nobody wants to point it out. That American boxing is historically bad right now. And they can try to dress it up however they want. The reason they don't have as many titles is because people just don't care about, but no. The reason that America has way less titles is we suck. We can only get better if we address what's there, right? This is 12 steps. We have to address that we have a problem first. We have to realize that we have a problem. We have to admit it. We have a problem. We have a problem. Fellas, we suck. We're awful. Across the board. This isn't just the fighters. This is the promoters. This is the managers. This is the journalists. This is the networks. These are the journalists with their ranking systems that don't make sense. The sanctioning bodies with their ranking systems that don't make sense. And it's content creators. I mean, go around, fellas. Like, go on YouTube. You look at the other countries. I go to Australian YouTube boxing, and they're just talking about boxing, and they're good natured, and it's fine. They're having good conversations. Same thing in the UK. You go to American boxing channels. Good Lord. Good Lord. Like, what is this? What is this? What are we doing? What are we doing? But I'm watching this stuff. And I'm seeing the number of titles diminish. I'm seeing no American fighter. This is the trend now. No young American fighter seems to be able to put anything together outside of Bam Rodriguez. And like I said, they'll tell you that the dude's a midget and he fights nothing but bums because they just don't follow lower weight classes. So what are we doing here? What are we doing? There's an interview. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick. That was interesting to me, of Dana White talking to Shannon Sharp. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick because it's interesting. He says some interesting things. Of course, he says some things that I don't agree with, but then he says some other things that are interesting when it comes to boxing. Let me see if I can find it somewhere. Yeah, let me type this in, boxing. I may not be able to find this, fellas, but give me one more minute. Sharp. Shannon Sharp. Media. Let's see if I can find it on Twitter. I may be able to do it. Let me get out of this. Top. All right, give me about 10 more seconds. Let's see if I can find it. It may not be there anymore. And I don't think I'll be able to find this. But it's an interesting it's an interesting interview. But Dana White's basically talking about the problems of boxing and how we treat everything like a going out of business sale. There's no, for him, he's building a sustainable model. People don't really know what his fighters get paid, and they're more marketable, so they're getting paid what's called passive income. And fighters these days don't make any passive income because they're not marketable. That's the problem. The only fighters with real economical deals outside of boxing would be Canelo, AJ. Golovkin was one of them, but he's out the door now with Jordan Brand. But other than that, fighters, what American fighter has a big brand behind them? Which one? It's not there. Even if these fighters are successful in the ring or look talented or have a lot of engagement behind them, they're not marketable in that way. Nobody's gonna throw their brand behind Ryan Garcia right now. The dude's getting arrested with a motorcycle helmet on, with no motorcycle around. Same with Tank. They're not going to throw their brand behind them. So there's a disconnect somewhere. There's a disconnect. Even the successful fighters, none of them can put anything together. Let's say Devin and Shakur, even if they win fights, even if they're undefeated, they're not entertaining. So there's that. Ryan can put something together, but he's crazy, right? He has one win. It's taken away from him. No contest. He's crazy. He's right back to no big wins. Tank Davis is exciting. He's entertaining, but he doesn't fight anybody. So nobody's doing anything. And at the same time, the market who is supposed to keep this stuff in check isn't behaving like a market. It is, though. I got to catch myself. It is, in that people are leaving. People are leaving. There's 150,000 of us left in America. People are leaving. They're lying about the numbers. These dudes aren't doing the live gates they're saying they're doing. They're not doing the pay-per-views they're saying they're doing. They're just openly and transparently lying to people about the market value of these fighters. It's just not there. But the ones that are left have put the bar so low for American fighters that they're living up to your expectations of them, is what they're doing. They're living up to the expectations of them. And this is the stuff you'll get. Is this guy new to boxing? What is this guy talking about? Tank and Ryan have huge brands. It's stuff you're going to hear, fellas. It's stuff you're going to hear. Are they making millions per fight? Sure. Where are their brands? What companies are behind them? Which ones? And on top of that, chronically mismanaged, so they would be bigger than they actually are right now, especially if they just got out of their own way and fought the fights and didn't hit pregnant women with their car, didn't get arrested with motorcycle helmets on. That's what it is. People are going to get mad at you for saying this stuff, that American boxing sucks. It's terrible, but you need to hear it from somewhere. You can go back into your cozy bubble and pretend that American boxing is great and that Tank is reinventing the wheel and Ryan's great and everything is going great, but it's not. It's not. It's not. I don't know what to tell you. You can go back to your bubble, go back to being comfortable and pretend that everything is going great and ignore that Japan has more belts than us. Mexico is about to catch up and the belts don't matter. And you can trust Leonard and these people telling you that Ryan versus Tank did over 1 million buys. And you don't even know what Ryan versus Haney did. Has anybody gotten the numbers? Have y'all? Somebody in the chat, one of the know-it-alls in the chat, can y'all tell me what Tank's pay-per-view numbers were for this past weekend? One of the know-it-alls in the chat. Don't tell them. Let them tell us what Tank's pay-per-view buys were for this past weekend. Let them tell us. They're not going to be able to tell us. You know why? Because they'll never find out. They'll never know. They'll never know. If those pay-per-view numbers were great, if Tank was a star, he's a superstar, and the live gate was great, and the pay-per-views were, you would have heard that by now. But you haven't heard it. Crickets. Why? Because it sucked. The dude had to have David Benavidez on his undercard, and David Benavidez had to be on Tank's undercard because neither dude can sell. And these are the dudes that some of these wizards of smart, these know-it-alls, are saying are stars. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. This is the first time that I can think of that we don't have an American boxing star. Canelo is the biggest brand in America. He's Mexican. Name the American fighter that's a star. They're not. They're going to lie to you. They're going to say these guys are stars. They're not stars. They're not. They're not. Sorry. Sorry to break it to you. Stars don't do 200,000 pay-per-view buys, fellas. They don't do it. At best. Duh. Hello. They're going to pretend that belts don't matter. You know who thinks belts matter? Now, in a way, Canelo Alvarez, Bud Crawford, Alexander Usyk, Dmitry Bivol, Arthur Beterbiev. The top 6 fighters in the sport, the 6 best fighters in the sport, thinks belts matter. So if you're one of these fighters who can't hold a candle to any of those fighters and you think you're above the belts, good luck. Good luck. Good luck. Good luck to you. But the beautiful thing is for Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia is they'll have these boxing fans in America who will cater to them, who will, when Devin whines and when Ryan whines, they'll rub them on the back. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. You'll be back. You'll be back. And you're a star. You're a star. Tank, they say you don't fight anybody, but don't worry, Tank, you're a star. And you would have beat Roberto Duran anyway, so it doesn't matter. You don't have to do it. You guys don't have to do these things. Tune these guys out. You don't have to do anything great. You don't have to do anything special. Just, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. But it's not. But it's not. The sport has been raped and pillaged here in America. And you'll have people around saying everything's fine. And then one day they're going to be looking around and nobody's going to be there. Nobody's going to be there. American boxing, if you take one thing from this podcast right here, this one today, American boxing sucks. It's historically bad. It's atrocious. And somebody needs to start ringing the bells. One of these journalists who gets paid to write things needs to write things about how Japan now holds more belts than us. That's a start. That's a start. American boxing content creators can start to talk about this stuff. And we could talk about the fighters. They can't feed their kids' legacy, right? So they've gone around the fire and not fought the tough fights and hoping that they can skip that process and still get to the point where a Canelo and an AJR or where a Mayweather was because of what he did the first 7, 8, 9 years of his career, where 2 years into his career, He fought 6 times. He beats Genaro Hernandez less than 2 months later. Less than 2 months later, he defends against Angel Manfredi. Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year 2 years into his career. Oscar De La Hoya, 1995, wasn't above fighting 5 title fights in the same year. These guys didn't worry about high minimums. These guys weren't whining if they were making 1.5 million against the Sandor Martins of the world, adjusted for inflation, because they kept their freedom. They trusted themselves to go out and compete and become brands and make money both in the ring and outside with passive income. Now they've been told by the soft boxing fans of America that they don't have to do that stuff anymore. You got social media, you got Instagram. Look, you got 10 million Instagram followers, so it's fine. It's fine. You don't need to do those things. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see over time. You know, we've been talking about this stuff for a couple years now, and we told you that we would get to this point. We told you we would get to a point where America was no longer the superpower and no longer held a monopoly on the belts, to where nobody was even close to them. There was always this thing where you had almost a dozen countries represented in the belt count, but none of them were close to coming close to America. Now, look at it. We told you we would get to a point where the entitled, privileged fighters of America would feel they're above giving you the fights, and you had to support them anyway. And look where we are. Look where we are. Fellas, if it wasn't for Turki Al-Sheikh coming into this money, you wouldn't be getting any of these fights. None of them. So that's where we're at. Not everybody's going to be able to handle it, but you got to tell people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. If you want one of those content creators who wants to get something off of Ryan Garcia's 10 million Instagram followers and wants to suck them off publicly, so and tell you that he didn't deserve to be banned for a year, and go there. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. They're going to tell you what you want to hear. You want one of those people that's going to tell you that Tank beats Roberto Duran in a mythical matchup and he doesn't have to fight the fights to get on a pound for pound list. Go there. Go there. We're just going to be honest here, and we're going to kick it, and we're going to just going to try to keep it as real as possible. I'll enjoy the fights. You know, I'm going to talk about the betting odds. I'm going to talk about the matchups, but I'm also going to be real here, fellas. Like this right here is atrocious. This American boxing, where we're at now, the whole thing, the whole culture, it's broken, it's polluted, it's destroyed. It's destroyed. So that's it. That's it.